Yeah, and as usual, we can wait 4 minutes or so before starting. Hello, Martina. So, being it 4 past the hours, I think we can start. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is an interim meeting of the co-working group. I am Marco. My co-chairs are Hannah and Karsten. And this is an official IETF meeting. So, as usual, the not will apply. Get familiar with that. It's about IPR and about revealing your personal knowledge of IPRs related to this discussion or refraining from participating in the discussion. And it's also about most of all our code of conduct, so please be nice with one another. And the agenda for today has 3 points. One is the href document on CRIs that is past IETF last call, the CITPEN document that should approach working group last call soon. And then we have one additional item proposed by ESCO on a related recent discussion on the mailing list. for which you also have some pointers in the notes. Link to the notes in the chat. Please help out. I'll try to take those. And with that said, we can move to Karsten with the first presentation. I think it's a single slide set on both href and CITPEN.
Correct. Did you share slides? Do I share slides?
Go ahead. Thanks.
Yeah, it's always an arbitration question, a race condition, whether the presenter or the chair presses the button, and Mika Ego is not very good in handling that race condition. Anyway, so one document that has already left the working group procedurally, that is currently in AD review, is the href document, or the constrained resource identifiers document. And we had some review comments from the ArtArt reviewer that were interesting enough to cause -24 to be submitted right before I began my vacation. So that -24 answers all the AD review comments and parts of the ArtArt comments, but leaves two comments open. And we have since had some additional discussion, and we now have two PRs that probably are needed to answer or to address the remaining two issues. One issue was that we could add more examples to the document. Now, I think that issue is shared by all of the internet drafts out there. They all could benefit from more examples. And we think in -24 there has been some work on more examples, and we really want to point to the wiki infrastructure we have for more examples, and in particular for test vectors. So the wiki.ietf.org already has a pull request merged that essentially points to the GitHub core working group wiki. And that wiki has pretty much an substitute page now pointing to the test vectors that are in the href document source repo. That might move at some point, but that's not important for the internet draft because that has the indirection over the other pages. The indirection has the disadvantage that it might require a little bit of sleuthing to actually find the thing. But on the other hand, it's very robust. So if we at some point decide to no longer use GitHub and so on, we won't change any of those links. So the document will just point to wiki.ietf.org. And whether that was made using GitHub or not is irrelevant for the document. So we have a stable link to something that can evolve over time. So that's 138. Of course, if somebody has an example that just drops in and really nicely explains something, we might still want to add that, but please submit this example within the next 24 hours or so, because we want to put a lid on this document. So this is one thing. The other thing is way more complicated. Pull request 139. Since we are working with URIs, we have to work with the authority part of the URI, and that has a host name in it, and that host name might be a reg name in 3986 parlance. And we know that if we plug this reg name into DNS, we will have to do some 2 ASCII processing. Or maybe we can fix DNS to do that for us. That's another interesting option. But we do not want to put the onus of having a 2 ASCII implementation, which means having a full Unicode table on every single device that uses CRIs. So what this change, this pull request finally does is say any use of 2 ASCII is out of scope. So right now it's mentioned in an implementation note that essentially says you may want to do that, but it's out of scope for this document. So it essentially says it's a fact that you may need to do that, but it's not governed by this document. So we can have the cake and eat it too by simply saying 2 ASCII is something to look at, but it's not really part of the CRI concept. It's part of the URI concept when you convert CRI to a URI, and need to have a rec name in that URI that directly plugs into DNS. So took us a while to understand that this was what we wanted to have. So both pull requests are out there, are waiting for reviews, and it would be really good to have some approvals of that within the next 24, 48 hours. So I believe the remaining upcoming issues are addressed. So the next thing would be to signal a go ahead to our AD that if he is happy as well, he can do a go ahead and do the next stage after AD review, which is IESG evaluation. So essentially all the ADs will look at that. And certainly if an AD cares about 2 ASCII, they will look at this implementation note, and I hope agree with it. But before we do that, I could just do that as an author. I really would like to know, is the working group happy? And in particular, is the working group happy with those 2 pull requests? Do we have to do anything else before we package that -25 and ask the redirector to go ahead?
Well, speaking as an individual, I had a look at both of them. They look good to me. What about you, Christian?
Last time I checked them, they look good. I can have a look over them after the call. But
Great.
Thanks. Any other input, anyone? If not right now, please have a look after the call.
So with luck, this will be ISG evaluation by the end of this week.
That'll be great.
Okay.
Echoing Christian's comment on the chat, someone is selecting the whole agenda in the notes, and indeed it's very hard to read. So whoever you are, please release your selection.
I'm not seeing that.
Oh, it wasn't me, but it looks like a selection attack if I hear this.
Yeah. Well, it's some of us. Please do that.
Okay.
Thanks, Scott.
So the next item on the agenda is on the next slide. And that is the SIDPEN document. So this is a working group document now. And after submitting -00, there was some good discussion in May. But we never really put a lid on that discussion. So there were arguments and counter arguments, but it's not entirely clear from the record of the discussion in the mailing list whether people are happy or unhappy. And of course, we should have an idea of that, because otherwise this is ready for working group last call. So are the concerns raised at the time addressed by the discussion? I would summarize the discussion as different views on how useful a zero threshold way to obtain SIDs are. So I probably should say something about the context of this document. There is a Yang CBOR specification, RFC 9254, something like that, that says how to use CBOR with Yang to represent Yang modeled data. And this requires some form of getting, or to be fully efficient, this requires to get numeric identifiers for schema nodes. These are for a document that is slated to become an RFC. There is a well-defined mechanism to get those identifiers, so that you will find there. But for third parties who just want to throw out a couple of Yang models, it has been a little bit more complicated than we would like. We would like zero threshold, zero effort to actually get those SIDs. And we need to have a registry of some kind to do that. And the idea was to just use the private enterprise numbers. Most people who do anything about management have a private enterprise number already, and it's really easy to get one if you don't. So once you have the pen, this document gives you a supply of SIDs that you can use for your own Yang models. This supply is limited. Of course, we cannot give unlimited numbers of SIDs, but it really should get you started. And once you have 1,000 SIDs or so out there, maybe it's okay to actually go through the slightly more onerous registration mechanisms that Yang CBOR and Yang SID provide. So that's the idea. And there were some concerns that zero threshold also might mean something like zero effort, or that's the point, really. But there are also certain things we would like authors of Yang models to do, like make this SID file actually available. And yeah, so there was there was an email message in May that maybe provides some text we could add with those expectations. It's not changing anything technically in the document, but it sets up some expectations for what people should do to make their SID allocations from this pen set easy to access. So the big question is that enough to address the discussion? Are any changes from that discussion reflected in the current draft? And as the slide says, there might be a dash or two with some implementer notes later today from that one message in May. I just was unable to get to this today. Yeah, then can we work in plus call? Does anybody know an impediment to doing a working plus call?
Yeah, actually can remember Michael Richardson on the list asking for this to happen already. And well, that can be a good opportunity to see if those answers and concerns are addressed, I think. So can we have it on version 2 when you submit it?
That should be the plan, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Then we can have the last call on version 2.
Yeah, as usual, I do a pull request and wait a little bit whether people react to that, and then I will use that to do a push.
Yeah, sounds good. And we will need a shepherd then anytime soon. We'll start looking for one.
Good. I'm done.
Thank you. Any comment, question, anyone? None. Thanks again, Karsten. Good progress. Okay, next is Esko with the proposed discussion on the list. I think you don't have slides, right?
That's right. I wanted to share the screen.
Yes.
And I need to request it probably. Done.
Yes, that should be coming up anytime now.
Then let's see. Entire screen.
Okay, we got it.
Yeah, so I have here the mail I sent to core working group list. So the context of this is some work being done in the Anima working group on constrained Brewski. And that has a default discovery mechanism defined. So it's based on co-op discovery using basically unsecured co-op and link local addresses. And that's the example above here. So implementations can actually use other discovery methods as well. And there's even a whole separate draft about supporting more discovery methods, for example, MDNS. But this is kind of one default method that's included now, just to have something there for Cbrewski, like a default method to go to if you don't want anything else. So it's basically finding, for a node that wants to join a network, finding a proxy that's able to help the node to onboard onto a new mesh network or other type of network. So this shows the interaction. So there's a link local nodecast request sent to all co-op nodes, basically asking for this specific resource type, brewski.jp. That's for join proxy. And then any device that actually is a join proxy will respond with a link here, shown in the example. So it will give a particular port here. And that's the port where the joining device can start sending messages, so using the secured co-op-S protocol. Yeah, I think an issue came up about the address here. So we have in the protocol that the joining device basically contacts the proxy, so it looks at who sent this response message. It takes that link a local address and sends back basically the DTLS co-op traffic. So it won't actually use this address as the protocol is currently defined. So we have those bytes in, but they're not used. So that seemed to be a bit of overhead. And there was some discussion about, well, what if this address basically deviates from the source address, or what if the joining device basically uses this? Yeah, basically uses this address instead of the IPv6 source address. So to reduce that variability, you could say, well, why not replace this address with something short, like it's done here. For example, I will highlight that. So this is using the unspecified IPv6 address. So at least the joining device knows, well, I have to use IPv6 and I have to use core protocol and go to that port. And unspecified here means that he has to get the address from another source. So in this case, it's the sender of the response message. So that's basically the idea, to use this. And I checked if link format does allow this. Yeah, I think it does. It's actually a correct URI here with the correct host name. The only thing is that there's no semantics as far as I know, except other than it's unspecified. So what we could do is to have a more generic kind of solution here. So we could define an extension of link format that says, okay, what does it mean to have an unspecified address here? So it could mean like a shorthand form for the IPv6 address of the sender of this link format document. And that's actually pretty similar to what link format already has for basically the compression of the origin, which is also done. If your link format only contains resource names in that case, so you compress the whole of scheme, host, and port away. And this is kind of a partial compression method, that's how you could see it. So I just wanted to check if there's any inputs on this, or ideas, or reactions, or thoughts if we should apply this to link format in general, or if this is only something specific for the Brewski protocol, which is also fine, I think.
Karsten?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. When we designed link format, we quickly noticed that it is often useful to have a way to have a link implicitly refer to the host of the well-known core resource document. So this is kind of a similar thing, except that we cannot rely on existing URI arithmetic give us that. So my problem with this is, yeah, because it's maybe it's not wrong, but it's very limited in the set of circumstances where it actually works. So the observation here is that what is blue right now actually already means something. So it's a URI, and that URI has a host address, which is the unspecified address. So typically, if you talk to the unspecified address, you get yourself. You're not, so the client who tries to use the URI that is written there is going to talk to itself. And I think that's not exactly what is meant here. It is the idea is to have an abbreviation for the server address, not for the client's address. So that's a bit of a backward compatibility thing. It's always bad to give something that already has a meaning suddenly a different meaning without actually telling anyone.
Yeah, maybe
that's my concern here. Otherwise, having an optimization here makes a lot of sense. In particular, if the resource actually is under a different port number, we don't have any support from 3986 to construct that URI. The 3986 has a single operation essentially you can do on a URI, which is that you can resolve a URI reference relative to this URI. And that, as far as I can see, does not help here, because we want to specify a port number but keep the host of the server, and there's nothing in 3986 that helps us with that.
Okay, yeah, maybe just first reaction was that actually the local host address is not same as this. So as far as I know, it does not mean the host itself. Maybe that's what the stack kind of makes of it, if you use this as a destination address. I think that might be your point, right? So even though this address does not say localhost, it's just unspecified, if you feed it to a tool or to an IP stack, that it might replace that with the address of the client itself, right? That's what's your point.
Yeah, that actually works on the web browser I'm using to look at this. So if I type in bracket, colon, bracket, colon, a port number, I get the server that is on my laptop at that port number because of the client's system. Because typically the unspecified address is replaced by what is the address of the system where this is
Well,
actually used.
actually, that could be an implementation, but I disagree a bit there, because the way that it's used is actually, for example, the device sending something and it doesn't have an IPv6 address at all. So it will use the unspecified address to mean itself, but it does not have an address, so it can still do a link local protocol. And then the basically receiver of that is supposed to look at the L2 address of the sender and use that, basically, so to look one layer lower. So it's not specified at the IP layer, it means, but it is specified at the layer below it, because you got the message from someone at the link layer. So then it will not use the basically host name itself, but just the sender of the message. So I think in terms of semantics, unspecified, as far as I could find everything about it, really just means unspecified. And that means it depends on the context what you would substitute it with. So I can imagine the web browser, knowing nothing else basically, except, well, we have a local host and the user is typing this. So what's the best thing to replace it with? Yeah, that could be the local host in that case. But it doesn't mean that it should work like that for all use cases, especially not the protocols that use unspecified address, like, which ones are this? MLB, I think, uses that. And maybe discovery, maybe also in some cases. Yeah, so that's how you could also look at it. Like, depending on the context, it has a particular resolution. So what you substitute for the unspecified address. So I think at least in this constrained Brewski context, it's pretty clear what that should be. But yeah, I think in the wider context, if you make it generic, I can imagine that could lead to problems, basically, because links are also supposed to be things that you can just basically take out and feed into a client to resolve that.
Yeah, there is a large number of attack vectors that are built from an unspecified address, because a client, an HTTP client, is not necessarily expecting to be led into talking to a local address. So ::1 is on the link local address. Just : makes the client find an IP address that actually can use, and you can build some really interesting attacks from this. Usually some cross protocol attacks. So that is pretty well known. I probably would need to find a document that goes into more detail on this. So this looks a little bit like an attack. Now, as you say, the way you want to use this, you actually don't care about getting URI. You are mainly care about getting the port number, and you combine this, where U is the client. The client combines this with the IP address that it already knows. And yeah, that definitely would have been a valid abbreviation if we had put this in at 2012. I'm not so sure about adding it 13 years later.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think there has been some efforts also to make like a follow-up of link format at some point, right? To make it maybe more CRI-like, compact, and that you can
Yeah, that's it.
easily.
That's work in progress, but kind of
Yeah.
depends on CRIs to be done.
Right. Yes.
But it also won't solve that problem right now, but we can put that in maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of yeah. You could think of could there be some shorthand basically substitute for that address, huh? Because you can also get multiple links returned. So that's the case I did not explain here yet. But if you generalize the concept of multiple registrars that support multiple protocols, as you join protocols, you could have this proxy that just aggregates those and returns separate links. So you could have 2 or 3 ports returned, and every port basically repeats the scheme name and the characters for the link local address as well. So it's basically the part I'm highlighting now here. Yeah, so this first
I think
part.
your screen share went. Are you still screen share? Okay. Your screen sharing again. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I don't know if it's maybe I should get my other window here, then I can see what happened to it. The screen share is still up. So yeah, basically it's part with scheme address. It's basically also repeated then 2 or 3 times if you have these links. And yeah, you might think like, hey, maybe there's a somewhat more efficient way to do it. Like I know DNS messages, for example, also use this name label compression. So if they refer to same name in the basically in the you could say the key of the record, then compression can be used so that the large strings are only included once.
Before we get too deeply into this, can we go back to the point where you said that the address that's in there is not actually used?
Yes, that's this address.
Because, like,
here.
if that is where we're starting from, I think the whole rest of the discussion is moot, because then this is really not using a link at all, but just like if you're not even using the address of the link, then
Right.
there's so much kind of yeah. Why is that address not used if it's put in there? Is this just if it's just about the compression, right? I mean, there could be something else in there, but why should that address not be used? I mean, it's perfectly sensible for there to be an address in that would be used, right?
Yeah, it can be used indeed. Yeah, if you want. So let me think about that. Are there any reasons why you would use the address in the link instead of the sender of the response?
Well,
Which
because
is the
that's
proxy?
because it's a link. If it's a link, the idea is that you follow that link, and if it says something that is not the address you sent it from, what the sender hopefully has their reasons to. For example, they could have been for matters they could have different IP addresses on the same link, or whatever. But the point is, like, if you're using link format, I think things work better if you stick with the
Yes.
things that link format provides.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's where the idea came up. Yeah, okay, I see the point. Yeah. So even if you say we do use the link and we do follow the link, you could still say, well, why not have some nice way of compression? Let's say.
Yes.
So put something short in there that refers to basically the IP address that sends the link format document, basically. So.
Yeah. Thing is that link format inherently uses URIs and is a plain text format that includes those URIs. So as long as you're working with link format, any URI reference would need to be something that 3986 can resolve. And it just doesn't have a mechanism for the port, and something that is in the plain text. So any URI, any DNS-like compressions don't really work there.
That's
And
right,
I don't think we'll have the energy to update 6690. So there are two things that I can. First thing I suggest is like, does it really make the difference? Although like I don't like parsing text IP addresses, but as long as you're using link format, like they're there.
Right.
And then two suggestions that you could do. One is what you could do immediately, especially if you were saying like, we don't use the address anyway, we just care for the port number and just like make that as compact as possible. There's nothing that keeps you from using other media types on well-known core. So in particular, if you say that like, you need to discover something that is not really a link, but just a port number, and you still want to use the discovery interface, you could just send a get there with an accept application brewski something plus CBOR, which would be a 2-byte number because it's a content format. And then you just get back a CBOR array of port numbers if that is what you really need, and that would afford the compression without creating the compatibility issues. Caveat is that you have to do that with a server that supports it. If you don't, you fall back to no content form we don't have that content format, and then have to fall back to link format. But then again, you're just specifying brewski join proxy, so you could require that the join proxy supports this. And then the third option is if you want to wait for Coral or like make that an optimization that could be done at some later point. Coral could not do a lot. Like Coral could help you with the deduplication of multiple IP addresses if that's the thing. It could not help you with relative reference that is just the port, but alters the scheme, and because the scheme changes too, but alters the scheme and the port number. But that is something that an extension to CRIs could do. For example, in a tag, you could define a tag that says, like switch the scheme and switch the port and like trim the path and query and fragment, but resolve that onto the current reference, and that could be a tag. And that would then also work in any CBOR CRI dependent format. But it might be a bit odd, but if there's a good reason to do it, it would work.
Okay, right. Yeah, well, that makes sense. So I was thinking about this part here. You mentioned doing a well-known query, asking for a different resource type. You could also say we should put brewski in here. So basically, then what is returned is under control of brewski RFCs. And in this case,
you could do that too. Yes.
Yeah, in this case, that could be a default document. That's because I don't think we have any queries defined yet on that resource. If we define it, we could say, well, return by default this new media type, which encodes like a CBOR array, for example, which includes port numbers or however we want to structure it.
Yeah, but the thing is, you'd need a media type for that anyway, and
yes,
you could also discover that through well-known core, which in a sense, the information that you return is equivalent or is a representation of that very link that you're showing. It's just a way more compact representation that is like custom built for your application. So
right,
I think it fits with well-known core as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of a new way to serialize this information that is normally there in link format, but it could be in a different format than which doesn't have links in that case. So okay, so I think this is something to consider, at least. So that's something I didn't think of yet. So Sounds good. I think I see some comments also on the chat, so I couldn't keep up with yet, but it's basically the meaning of the unspecified address in local client and server configurations. So it seems to me that, like, okay, to be on the safe side, it's best to avoid that notation here. Yep, we can conclude that.
Yeah, so I just said one half of my reaction. The other half of the reaction is that's a nice hack. But yeah, with hacks you really have to examine whether there will be systems that are interpreting this in a way that would be justified before the hack was introduced. And I think that the danger for that is a little bit too high. So I think Christian said in his browser bracket, colon, bracket didn't work. Is that true, Christian?
In my browser, what bracket, colon, bracket does is it redirects me to bracket, colon, 1. And that is a thing that the browser does. It's definitely not something that the web server does, because the web server is a Python -m HTTP.server that does not issue redirect. So if I do a curl there, the curl shows that there is no redirect, and just the content. But if I enter it in the browser like alters my URL to be colon 1. So there is definitely weird stuff on that address.
Yeah, so it does, case of both curl and the web browser, it does try to connect somewhere, right? Kind of replaces it by probably the local host.
Yeah,
effectively both connect to a local host, but the browser like does something I've never seen it do before.
Okay.
Yeah. So what actually happens is that this is an unspecified address, and now the kernel finds itself in the position to actually connect to this unspecified address. And from the server configuration side, that means any IP address that is local on any link we support. And my laptop actually has two links. It has the localhost link, which is colon 1, and it has the link of the Wi-Fi interface, the address of the Wi-Fi interface on the current Wi-Fi link. And the way the systems are written, I tried this on macOS, and I assume Christian tried this on Linux. Of course, the link local, the home link, localhost link, is the one that most systems will choose, because it's much more defaulty than the other ones. If I had a Wi-Fi and an Ethernet, would it use the Wi-Fi or the Ethernet? So it just decides to use the localhost one. And if I actually look into the server log, I see that somebody connected from colon 1. So there's no redirect. This is just given that the destination address comes from the localhost link, the source address is colon 1. So that's really lots of fun.
Okay.
Yeah, but otherwise I agree with what Christian said.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's also useful to consider.
It's always a bit disappointing when nice hacks you dream up don't actually are a responsible thing to use, because there might be some side effect that is hard to understand what it actually does. So the next thing I should try this in Riot or some other constrained operating systems and see what they do with the unspecified address.
Yeah, I at least can't ping the address on Windows here.
Oh, interesting.
But maybe I'll try on Linux to see what it does. Yeah. Okay, right. So yeah, maybe the more general question is then for the discovery part. Yeah, let me think. So would it be the best approach then to use this kind of other content format basically for discovery, so that one that is a bit more compact and maybe includes all the information we need and not the information we don't need. Just don't know if we have some feeling like we should actually use co-op discovery wherever possible and not invent a new basically representation for that discovery result if it's not really needed.
Yeah, the nice thing about the link format is that you can have several links in there. But if the actual semantics isn't that of a link, but is supplying a port number, then having a different media type for that sounds like a cleaner way of doing it.
Yeah, I think we are considering extensions basically of the response, so that we basically have I think some way to communicate also different protocols. So that's called Brewski variations now in the new draft. So variations means that it could be like a version 2 of constraint Brewski, or they're exactly the same, but then it uses a different voucher format, for example. Those are things that we consider that might also evolve. So like, let's say a version 2 protocol. So you need some information to distinguish, okay, what is on this port? So is it only version 1 or is it also version 2? And I think the idea was to use also a link format attribute for that, to have a very short way to encode, okay, what type of joining protocol is it here? Yeah, like another variation is that for the enrollment part, you could use EST, but you can also use another protocol, so that's not EST, combined with BlueSky. So I think all that kind of information would need to be communicated in a single identifier that we say, okay, it's like a profile, so here's a package of formats and enrollment protocols and everything that is compatible with what you're looking for. But there could be multiple of those, so in that case, you do need discovery format to have that information to send it to the client. I don't have an example here exactly how that will be used, but it could be a newly defined key basically here instead of RT. Would be some key to denote the Brewski variation. So let me think. Yeah, so I think that kind of calls for it. Yeah, something more than just port numbers in any case. We have to carefully consider this. So, Christian coming up. Any input you want to give?
I'm still not quite sure whether what you're trying to discover is actually kind of makes sense as a link or not. But if you use it as a link, yes, I don't think there are any more options. If you're more about like discovering a service that is not really link shaped, then you could easily like tag other identifiers into that thing that contains port numbers in a different media type. So you'd have all the extensibility you want there. Question
Right.
is just is it justified? Is it justified to have another format?
Right. Yeah. You need to define it, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I think the implicit assumption is that if you use a simple format, and it's defined in CBOR, which is already used as a format anyway for Brewski. So you have to parse it anyway. So if you reuse that CBOR for it and have a relatively simple thing like an array that you can extend in length or whatever, put the items there, then it could make it easier to parse the resulting items.
I mean, it's still a new format that's like based on CBOR, but yeah, the parsing effort would be limited. Also, if you choose to go that way, there could be like a late we could later do something that I'm also planning for problem details. That is, in a sense, this could later be retconned to be a compact for just like a bespoke compression for information that is actual Coral content. But like if you have just a very simple data, you can express it that way. But I don't think that that helps solve the main issue, that is it needed?
Okay. I was not thinking of a sort of Coral light to define it, but okay. You probably also don't want too many variations of these formats.
Thing is, thing with Coral is that the serialization is still quite in flux, because we're gathering examples, and
yeah,
whether it what kind of top level elements make sense depends on basically the corpus we'll find. So there is no single property of Coral light that I would feel confident now to commit to, like, hey,
okay.
This is a this will be guaranteed Coral, however it will be extensible.
Yeah, it's a bit like a simple profile of Coral where you don't use all the features. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so in that case, it's still an option to kind of consider this what we have here, a link format, and then let the client follow the links. At least that saves us from defining a new format. And actually, in practice, implementations might use other formats too. For example, this kind of thing is also used for the thread mesh network. They have a proprietary discovery method, and that works basically, using a binary TLV based format. So you get information about the port number to use, and well, plus a little bit more. But the main thing is the port number. And then for the Brewski draft, we could still use basically this link format discovery as the baseline solution, because, well, it's there, it's already defined. And that way we don't introduce even more incompatible discovery methods, basically. We found that there already are sufficient, we think so. Okay, thanks. I'll take that into account. So that was it for the topic, at least from my side.
Thank you very much, Esko. Very good discussion.
Thanks. Yeah, very good.
Any more input or question, just to be sure? Okay. Yeah, I had another point on another document, short passing co-op. There was formally called for adoption until yesterday. Yeah, there was some more discussion in the list, mostly coming from Esko, and then 5, if I count correctly, supportive messages. So Carsten, if it works for you, I think we can consider it close and adopt the document. What do you think? Looking for the mute button, probably. Carsten?
I didn't understand your question.
Sorry. I was counting the supports around short passing co-op, the document that we had been called for adoption formally until yesterday. Looks all positive, so if it works for you, I think we can consider it adopted and declare it so.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let's do that. And speaking of the
I just
document,
don't like the word short path, because the path doesn't get shorter. We just have an abbreviated form to represent it.
Given that the document already changed the name of the option, thanks for the adoption. I'll change the name of the document while I'm uploading it as a workgroup document.
and speaking of which, how about something like that in the chat?
Boring but effective.
Yeah.
Well, it's aligned with the option name.
Is it aber or abrev? No, really. I saw somebody say, "Oh, it's your iPath abrev."
I think the draft uses abr now for the option name.
Yeah, do we all feel fine about that?
If anyone who does not know which thing I picked into is using abrev, because that's the more common abbreviation for abbreviation, I'll switch to abrev. It's tomato.
And to be sure, I guess, Carsten, you were talking about the document title.
I was
right?
talking about both the doc name, the file name, and the name of the option.
Yeah, it's nice to have both aligned, right? Option name and document name.
Obviously, yes.
So the most critical thing right now is the document name. That's harder to change.
Okay, so abrev it is?
Abrev then.
Yes.
Okay, so
Sounds good.
this.
I had an even shorter variant of app, but then you don't know what it means probably.
Okay, I'll send out
Implements should be free to support different shorter names that they allow to use in their APIs.
Right.
Okay, I'll send out a mail then later today. Thank you all for contributing. Okay, any other points you want to discuss today? If none, thanks a lot. Talk to you in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.